Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. And let's continue today with API testing session. I will be taking 2 day session. Okay, one for I will be showing you for entire API testing means what. We will discuss some basics of API testing, and then I will cover some important point like practical part. So how we can do API testing with using Postman tool, as well as I will be showing you REST API. Okay, which is the latest like demand we have in the market. Fine. So if I'm going to start, mute. Yes. So guys, whatever your queries, you can just pass in the chat box and be on mute. Okay. So let's start with a very beautiful topic, very beautiful concept and very popular topic. Okay. Nowadays, very boomed in this IT market, which is called API testing. What is API testing and why we require to test API, right? There are so many questions you have, might be, right? So let's see. What is API and what exactly I'm going to cover here. So already you guys are aware about software testing. This is the entire testing concept only. Yes. Why we test the software application? To improve the quality of the software application. Every time, whatever the applications will be developed, okay, we guys are going to test that application to improve the quality. So as a tester, what is your role? As a tester, you guys are going to test the application as per the client requirement, and whatever the defects will be there, right? We guys are going to simple log those defects. And finally, what will happen? Obviously, defect will be fixed by the developer. Yeah, I request everyone just be on mute. Okay, just a minute. Let me mute. Fine. So whatever the defects you will find, okay, you guys are going to simple, log those defects and developer will simple perform the fixing activity on that. Correct? Okay, some students are joining the session. Just a minute. Okay, just focus guys and check your mic and just be on mute. Fine. Okay, done. So software testing, it is a process where we can test the application to identify defect, right? But now in this API testing journey, first of all, you just need to understand very important component, which is called client and server. Okay. So we are going to discuss few things about client server architecture first. Then we will talk about what is API. Then what is API testing? Why we need to do API testing? Then the popular interview question, what is difference between unit testing and API testing? Then the very important topic, web services. What we can call as a web service and how many different types of web services are there. Okay. Then I'll show you some tools where you can simple perform this API testing. So very important, like the popular tool is Postman. So I will be showing you the entire demo part through the Postman tool. And then we have a tomorrow session, which is completely for REST API practical. So what is REST API, why we need to do that, and how exactly we can do that. Okay, that I will be covering in tomorrow's session. So let's continue with today's topic. Very first, every component, in every software application, these two components are placed, like these two component plays very important role. Okay, client and the server. What is a client and what is a server? So client is a computer, okay, or I can say hardware device, or it is a software that will simple, pass some request, okay, pass some request to the server. So let me explain in a very simple way. So these two components are very important, right? Client and the server. So what is the responsibility of a client? Client will pass a request to the server and server has to serve that request back to the client. But see, at the server side, there are two different activities happen. Okay. Very first, what the server will do, server will validate your request. Server will validate your request. If the request is valid, then only, server will serve that request. These two actions or these two particular activities done at the server side. Okay. So you are able to see that particular response. So server will serve that particular request. So basically how the server will serve the request in the form of response, right? So these two important, I can say request and response, these two parameters are very important. What you are going to pass in the form of request, guys? Generally we pass request in any form, right? In web application, if you observe, So in web application, you guys are going to pass what? A simple URL address. So request I'm going to pass in the form of URL address. And how, like what kind of response server will simple send? Response you can get in the form of scripting, Very first, just observe everyone. Initially, when you pass any request, you'll be not able to see any kind of response directly. I mean to say, whatever you are able to observe through the client only, you will be able to see everything in the form of UI only. Correct now? Whatever you are able to observe, this is everything what? It is in the form of UI only. So, क्या server आपको directly UI pass करेगा? No. Whenever you pass a request to the server, server will pass a response, but in what? In a particular scripting languages. So here you will get a response in a scripting languages. And this response, it is a browser ability that every browser have this ability. Browser will interpret this response in the form of what? UI. And then only you are able to see that UI part at the front end side. Yes, client is always available at the front end side. Correct, no? So client is always available at the front end side, and server, this is an entity, or I can say it is a physical computer. Everything, the entire logic, code, everything, database, everything you will get at the server side. So this is called backend. This is called backend. So what is the responsibility of a client and server? Client will pass a request to the particular server. Server will first do validation on that request. If the request is valid, then only server will serve that request. Correct? So server will serve the request in the form of response. And that response usually you will get in a scripting languages. But what happens at a browser site where user can access that particular application? So user can't understand directly scripting language, no? So user will, it is a browser responsibility that interpret that response in the form of proper UI. So we can interact with the application, we can use that application directly through that UI. So let me show you this example. If I go to browser, okay, fine. What we do, we write here a particular request in the URL. Suppose if I pass a request as a google.com. See, I'm able to see this UI part, right? We can see this UI part directly. But see, what is happening at backend side that we are not aware. What is happening at the backend side? See, you are passing this URL address, okay, from the client. So who is a client here? Browser is a client here. To the browser, we are passing this request, correct? So once the request goes to the particular Google server, what the server will do? Server will pass a response to you. But response in the form of UI? No. You will get response in the form of scripting. Let's see. That scripting language can be anything, guys. If you go to this view page source option, let's see. This is a response I'm getting in the HTML form. So it can be any scripting language. HTML request it can be, or response it can be, XML response it can be, or JSON response it can be, right? So this time from the Google, we are getting this. But as a normal human being, like everybody is not a technical person, correct? So we are not able to understand whatever coming directly from the server. So obviously, what the browser will do, browser will interpret this particular response in the form of UI, and then only you will see at the front end side. So this is happening at the backend part, correct? So remember this particular two important activities and two special component for communication. For any kind of data exchange, we require these two important component. One is called client, another one is called server. So the point is written here. What is a client? Client is a computer hardware device or a software that accesses a service made available by server. Correct? Whatever server has sent, that you are able to access through the client. What is server then? Yes, guys, server is a physical computer dedicated to run services to serve the need of other computer. Obviously, whatever you are passing through the client, that is in the form of request, right? Server will simply serve that request. So server can be any server depending on your services, like whatever it is running. It could be file server, it could be database server, home media server, print server, web server, it could be anything. Example, if you are passing, amazon.com, suppose this is a particular URL I'm passing, this is a request I'm passing, what will happen? Amazon.com, this particular request will goes to the server. And what the server will do in that case? Server will simply serve that request. So whatever you can see, like at the front end side, the pages you are able to see, okay, you are able to select any particular product, you are able to add that product to the cart, you are able to do some kind of payment. But where exactly this entire logic is available? At a client side? No. Everything resides at a server side. Remember this point. All the internal structure of the application, the database, everything resides at the server side. So whenever you talk about any software application, how the application is actually implemented, guys, and what is the internal representation, internal structure for application, let me explain. As I told you, client and server, these are the two important components. But along with this component, now we need to understand whenever any application is developed, how exactly application is implemented. So there are some layers, for application development, there are 3 layers are important. Very first, presentation layer. So here, suppose I'm going to design this first layer, which is called presentation layer. Okay, just observe. This is a presentation layer. And here, client is nothing but your client is available at the presentation layer. So through the presentation layer, any user can interact, user can pass a request, and user can get the detail from that particular application, or user is able to access that application. So there is a server. Obviously, client is able to pass a request to the server. But again, in server, there are 2 important components. First component that you will be able to see, that is called application server. What is this middle layer? Which is actually called application layer. Okay, application layer. We can call it as, application server, as a web server. You can call it anything. Fine. Now, what is the responsibility of application server or this layer? This layer actually it contains some business logic. Remember, this layer actually contains some business logic. What is this business logic, guys? Business logic, it is nothing but set of program. Okay, business logics are nothing but what? Some set of program. Who developed this business logic? Business logic is implemented by the developer. Okay, it is implemented by the developer. So obviously, whenever you are passing any request from the client to server, request validation happen through the business logic. Remember, at application layer side, you will be having this business logic, and whatever request you are passing through your client, that request will be validated, through this particular business logic. So business logic will help you to validate your request. Let me write here. It will help you to validate your request. After that, this application layer will pass that request to the main component, which is called, and this layer is called actually data layer. Data layer is very important. So where you can see your database is hosted on again a server, correct? So here you will see your database where the every data in a very structured manner we can represent, and this is available at a database site. So we can simply call it as database server. Okay, this is a database server, this is a web server, or you can call it as application server. So entirely, or I can say combinedly, these 2 components are nothing but server. Okay, server side, these 2 components are very, very important. So I can simply call these 2 are what? These are nothing but server. So what happens? Obviously, when you pass your request goes to the database server. From the database server, after validation, database server will simply serve the request. But where the request is coming, okay, just off your video, Nikhil, off your video. Yeah, where the request is coming or response is coming, response, whatever it is from the database, you will be able to see again in the business logic. And then from the business logic, the same response you will be getting in the form of scripting, correct? But now it is the responsibility of a browser to interpret this response in the form of proper UI. And so this UI, user is able to access and user is able to perform, application or some operations on that application with the help of this UI. In this way, communication happens internally. Okay, remember this particular communication point. So client is here acting like a web browser, right? So here we can pass a request through the browser. Browser request will goes to the server side, where at the server side you will get some business logic, which will help you to validate your request. So which will help server actually to validate a request. And finally, that request goes to the database server. And then from the database server, whatever response is coming, response goes to again business logic. And through the business logic, we are able to see here. So guys, these three layers are very important whenever any software application is going to implement. Presentation layer, where the designing part is available, right? Client is able to, or any user is able to communicate with this presentation layer. User can't directly communicate at the server side. Remember this point. Okay, user can communicate through the client side only. So what is happening? User is able to pass a request. Request will validate by the business logic, and then request will simple serve, to this client again. Now, what is happening? Why these three layers are important to understand? Because whatever testing you do at this presentation layer, which is actually called GUI testing, correct? Which is actually called GUI testing. What did GUI stand for? Graphical User Interface. So whatever we test at the presentation side, this is called GUI testing. So we use mostly, Selenium tool for this, correct? Selenium is a functional testing tool which is used to test web UI, correct now? So whatever application UI part will be there, we are able to validate it, its functionality, with the help of Selenium tool. Selenium, you can use UFT, right? There are so many tools are available which can simple test the presentation layer. That means a graphical user interface. So basically, the internal concept is what? Every time, the client role is very simple. Client will pass a request, but server will serve that request, right? So actual role is happening at the server side. The internal mechanism, whatever, like how the response is coming, how the response is passing again to the client, right? It is everything happen through this middle layer, which is very important. Application layer, correct? So what we do in API, and what is API? API, like instead of passing request through the UI side, through this browser, or I can say through the client side, if we pass a request directly through this, site on this particular business logic directly, suppose I'm passing request here without any UI interaction. And because everything is doing with this business logic only, correct now? Everything is done by this business logic only. And that is the reason, if I pass a request to the browser, okay, again, we need to wait till the response is coming from the same server. And then finally, you will get this UI. So we do functional testing at this layer. But what is my question? If we pass a request directly to this business logic, and if we test it, okay, what will happen? See, whenever you are passing request to the business logic, so whatever it is coming, okay, that is a request. That is just the input. Input will goes to where at this particular validation will happen, and then business layer will pass that particular, this business logic will pass that request to the database. Again, from the database, you are able to see this response. And then you will again get the response here. So what we are going to do now in the API, what is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So guys, API testing actually we perform at this particular level, at this application level. So what is happening in API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So instead of taking efforts to testing this UI part, because we are passing requests, then finally once we got the response, then only we are able to test this. If the element is properly loaded inside a DOM, then only you are able to see the UI, and then only you can automate. So what is happening? Instead of taking effort at this client side, if we take an effort at this business logic side only, then guys, it is very, very faster. The process is very, very faster, because here we need to wait till the UI get simple, observe here, UI get populate here, correct? But here what we can do, whenever we pass a request directly to the business logic, we are able to see the response directly, but yes, no UI available at this site. Okay, whenever you do API testing, you'll be not able to see any kind of UI part. That means you'll be not able to see like application ka kaun sa page open ho raha hai, right? Home page is coming or login page is coming. No, you are not able to see any kind of UI. And that is the reason API testing is very, very faster. API, it is actually, bundle of a program. Simple. It is a collection of a program. So whatever business logic will be there, that developer will provide you in the form of API. And on that API, in a QA environment, in a local environment, we do testing. And that is called API testing. So what is happening in API testing? What exactly we are able to do? We are able to pass some request to the business logic, and the same request will business logic will validate, and finally we are able to see some response. So guys, remember this point. API testing, it is a actually process like where we can check that how two different applications they are able to communicate. How two different applications they are able to simple exchange their data, that we test in the API testing. Okay, all the request and all the response only we are able to test in the API without any UI part. So the process will be very, very faster here. In the API, process will be very, very faster, right? So once you test API directly, suppose 80% problem you have solved at the business layer only or at this application layer only, automatically guys, you don't need to take so much effort at the function testing side. Are you getting my point? अगर 80% प्रॉब्लम को यहीं पे सॉल्व करोगे तो ऑब्वियसली यू डोंट रिक्वायर टू टेक मच एफर्ट at this functional testing side. So where you use Selenium tool and where you test this functionality of the application. And that is the reason nowadays everywhere API testing is a very boom. Why? Because API testing में बस आपको request pass करना है and you are going to validate a response. So where exactly we can do this API? Chalo, before API, let's see this entire architecture. You know how many different architectures we have in a computer system? Yes, guys. Or for computer application, I can say. Or software application. See, there are 4 different architectures are available, right? One is called desktop architecture, client server. And yes, third one is what? Web. And the fourth one is mobile architecture. Now let me show you. These 3 are very special, correct? Very first, previously you have only the one tier architecture, which is called desktop. This is actually desktop. What is a desktop architecture? Whenever you talk about client and server, so entire software component, whenever it resides on a single computer system, so the client will be on the same system, server will be on the same system, then that particular architecture is called desktop architecture. And only one user can access such an application, then that is called desktop application. Desktop को generally हम बोलते हैं one tier architecture. इसका limitation क्या था? Previously there was only desktop. What is the limitation of desktop? See, desktop application you can't share to any other person, correct? It resides on a single machine only. On a single machine only you are able to get that application, and only single copy will be shared with single person. Right? You can't share it to any other person. And that is the reason they design a second architecture, guys, that is called client server. That is called client server. What is a client and what is a server? This is called 2-tier architecture because there are 2 different layers. One is a client, another one is a server layer. So what is happening here in this architecture? You can just observe. So server is reside somewhere at other place, or let's say client is reside something like this, in this way. There can be one server and there can be multiple client in this way. Okay, just consider example. And every client can pass a request to the server and server has to serve the request. In this way, we are able to communicate with this server, right? So client is acting here what? This particular client server architecture, there is one problem, in client server architecture, I can say it is very, very limited to the, I can say it is not this kind of application you can't use in the overall world. This is connected with a LAN, local area network. So what is happening in client server? Client is able to pass a request. Server is also serving that request, but it is limited. It is available in the local area. I mean to say that it is available only for a small geographical area. You can't access it through the outside that particular area, right? It is located. It is like you can consider any example here, like any kind of small offices setup you can consider. In fact, in a college, whatever the practical labs are there, these labs are nothing but in the same client and server architecture, right? Where this architecture, where the same software copy will be shared with multiple clients. But what is the problem? It has a very limited scope. Only within that particular specific area, you are able to use that application. And that is the reason they design third important layer, or I can say third important architecture, which is actually called web architecture. And whatever we design first, whatever we observe first, there is one client, and then client can pass a request to whom? This application layer, which is actually server, correct? And then finally you will get one more component, which is a database, where your database get reside, correct? So this is what server, guys. This is a complete web architecture. In web architecture, this client and server, this component, okay, these three components are very, very special. So through the client, we are able to pass a request to the server. Server actually contain what? Some business logic. This business logic again validate your request, and finally it will pass a request to the database. Through the database server, DB server, let me write in a short, DB server. Then DB server will serve that request again back to the business logic. Through the business logic only, you guys are able to see that response in the form of UI at a browser side, at a client side. And then user is able to access that application directly through the client. So these three layers are important. So this is a first layer, presentation layer. This is a second layer, which is we can call application layer, or you can call a simple business layer. Yes, you can call it as business layer also. And this is a third layer, which is nothing but database layer. So what is the main point? If you test the complete UI part, then this is called GUI testing. Okay, we do GUI testing at this particular layer. Whenever we talk about API, API is nothing but application programming interface. So what is API testing? It is all about testing this business logic. Remember, API testing means we are testing this entire business logic, correct? So in API testing, the term API, why? Because it is a part of application layer. API, it is a part of application layer. Programming interface, why? Because business logic is nothing but all the program, all the logic resides here. And through this programming layer only, client and server, this with presentation layer and data layer, they are able to communicate. So it is an interface. Interface is nothing but communication between two different components, correct? So why the name is API? Because it is a part of application layer, first of all. Second, programming, because we test entire business logic, and it is acting like an interface. Yes, it is an interface between presentation and the database layer. And that is the reason this is called API. So we do API testing at this application layer. Remember this point. We do API testing at this application layer. Now, when you perform, database testing, what is database testing? So obviously for database, you should require SQL knowledge. You should have a SQL first, right? What is SQL? How we can pass a commands? What kind of queries will be there, right? Everything you should know first. So now you have a SQL to understand first, and whenever based on the SQL, whatever the database will be there, that we are able to test, then it becomes database testing. So when you go for end-to-end testing scenario, in end-to-end testing, from the front end to back end, every process we should test. As an end-to-end testing, tester should know what is functional testing part, what is GUI testing part, what is this API testing part, as well as this database testing part. Are you understanding? This is the market demand. You should know everything, basically. So today we are going to start with what? The same API testing concept. So these three architectures, this is a third tier architecture, which is called web architecture, right? And you can see here, again, client is somewhere else. The client is acting like your browser, simple, and business logic reside at the application server, and database server is also a third layer. So this is nothing but three-tier architecture. So here we can use application, or we can access application overall a world, correct? Through the web, through the internet, we can able to access the application. So these three architectures are very important, which we can say simple client and server architecture. Nowadays, in this, I can say in this online concept and in this entire IT field also, everywhere, basically mobile usage has increased. And that is the reason today the market demand is also, you should know the at least basic about mobile testing. What is mobile applications? How we can test the mobile applications or any kind of mobile architecture, right? So this is what the main important topic. Every software application designed and based and developed, based on certain architectures. So that can be desktop application, that can be client server, that can be web, or that can be mobile application. So you should know very first what kind of these applications are, the internal mechanism of this application, you guys should know. And that is the reason this point is important. Now the next topic is, so as I discussed, these three layers are very important: presentation, application, and data layer. So if you observe, presentation layer is nothing but what? It is a client. And at the client side, you can see entire UI part. Whatever UI part is there, this UI part, you guys are able to observe, or UI is implemented in these programming languages: HTML, JavaScript, CSS, right? Entire UI you will be able to see because of these programming languages. Application layer, where you will see the entire business logic reside. So business logic is implemented in which programming languages? So these are some programming languages. Let me tell you, these are scripting languages and these are programming languages, right? So Java, .NET, C#, Python, C++, depending on the client requirement, developer will develop the application. And obviously, to implement a database, we have various database servers, right? We have various database, I can say servers. So MySQL is there. I will say SQL Server is there, MongoDB, Oracle, there are so many. So again, these are some MySQL, or these are some database applications that we can use to implement a database, correct? So developer use these three important layers to implement the software application. So whenever application will implement, what we can do, we can simple test that application. Obviously, testing should start right from the requirement and it should continue till the release. But this time, whenever you are going to do API testing, where exactly you are going to perform API testing? So let me tell you the concept. What happened, guys? Obviously, business logic is a main part where we simple test the entire business logic of the application. But what happened, whenever every software is there, and for every software there might be a multiple modules available, correct? Consider module 1, module 2, module 3, right? So what the developer will do, developer first implement application module wise. So this time, whenever developer implement this every single module and developer test this every single module, this is we can call unit testing, correct? This is we can call unit testing. Then after unit testing, what will happen? Suppose this is a M1, this is M2, this is M3, right? What the developer will do, developer will integrate these three modules together. So whenever the integration happens, so this layer we can simple call it as integration, correct? Integration testing. In this integration testing, we simple follow the approaches like top down, bottom up, big bang, right? Depending on the customer requirement. And finally, you will get a build of that application. So what is a build, guys? Build is nothing but executable file. Very, very simple. Build is nothing but executable file. So this build here, before going to perform third layer or third level of software testing, that is called system testing. Here on this build, we do what? API testing. This build is nothing but API. You will get in the form of API. And here we can perform API testing. So API testing is actually part of integration only. So whenever you will get a build, before going to validate a build in system testing directly, because in third layer, what we do? In system testing, it is a process where we can test software application or entire system with its functional and non-functional requirement, correct? Functional requirement and with a non-functional requirement. So let me tell you, before functional, before non-functional requirement, what we guys do? We guys simple perform API testing at this level. Let me tell you, API testing or API developed by whom? So API developed by developer. But API test by whom? API test by tester. Remember this point. You guys are not going to implement any coding part or anything else. You are just going to test that API. Whatever it is provided by the developer, you guys are going to test that. So here, what kind of testing we do? There are various testing, okay? We can test the API. API testing has a variety of types. So we can perform functional testing on the API, yes. We can perform validation on the API, yes. We can perform load testing. We can perform performance testing, security testing, all the functional, non-functional, basically we can do on the API testing. Most popularly we do, I can say in a simple term, black box testing. Unit level, at integration level, here the developer perform white box testing. But in API testing, we do black box testing. So what is your role? You guys will get API, correct, from the developer team. This API, you guys are going to test. How you are going to test? In the QA environment. But how you are going to test it? Simple. You guys are going to provide some input to this API and you guys are validating what? Output. So we are doing what? Black box testing. So no code, nothing. यहाँ पे आप कोई भी प्रोग्रामिंग या कोडिंग को सिंपल टेस्ट नहीं करोगे. Everything is ready. API will be provided by the developer. Okay, you guys are going to just pass a request and just test the output. So yeah, there is a one more term that I have used here, input. Input means what? It is actually, in a technical term, it is a request. We guys are going to pass a request and output का मतलब क्या है? We guys are testing what? Response. So let me tell you what kind of request you can pass. You can pass some URL address, right? Maybe you are passing some data. This is called payload. Okay, whenever you are passing some information to the server, in that case, it is also called as payload, right? Now, what kind of response you will get? Guys, generally जब हम API testing करते हैं, तो request, it is nothing but we are passing some HTTP request. So I will come to this point. What is HTTP request and how many requests are there? So very popular, like on any database, whatever operation we perform, right? We can get some data, we can pass some data, right? So in that case, same, like the similar, we have HTTP request. Very popular, get request. We have post request. Let me write get, post. Then for update, we have put, we have patch. Just a minute. For update, we have put, we have patch. Let me write. And we have delete. Okay, to delete the information. We can use this delete also. So these are some HTTP requests that we are going to use here. And then we will test the response. So when you pass a request to the API, what kind of response you will get? See, response, obviously you will get in the form of what? Some scripting, right? And this scripting, again, we can consider what? A payload. This is a payload. Maybe you will be able to see some messages, right? So that successful messages, whatever it is, we can capture, we can test. Then you will able to see some response code, which is very, very important. This is called status code. So if your request is valid, then you will get some status code. Generally for successful response, you will be able to see all the 2xx response code. That means whatever it is starting with 200, let's say 201, 202, all these are called or comes under success response. So ye exactly kya point hai? Let me explain this point. But very first, what is API? So API is nothing but what? It is a bundle or collection of program. API is a application programming interface. Whatever API will be there, that API you will get it from the developer. In a QA environment, whenever you test it, then it becomes API testing. Remember, very first हम क्या करेंगे उसको API को test करेंगे. So now let me come to this point. So yes, all three layers, which is very important. Presentation layer, which is nothing but the client side. Business layer, where you see the entire logic, component, everything, whatever you will see, it is a server side basically. So you will get it through this business layer. All the logics will be implemented here. Okay, developer will implement API here. And then you will be able to see this database layer, which is nothing but what? Which will help you to access some data or which will provide some data from the database. So whatever request you are passing, request will serve to this database first, and then to the database you will get it, right? So this is the particular flow which is available in this client and server architecture. Now the point, what is API? So guys, API enables communication and data exchange between two separate systems. So it can be anything. दो client हो सकते हैं communication करने के लिए, दो server हो सकते हैं, maybe client and server हो सकते हैं, तो it can be any combination. So API का मतलब क्या है? It will help you to communicate within these two different systems, data exchange between these two different systems, right? So software system implementing an API that contains functions, subroutine, which can be executed by another software system. Means what? Let me give you best or beautiful example. See, now just focus. Suppose I will be searching here, make my trip. Okay, let me go to this beautiful application. So obviously there are so many things that we can do with this application, or through this application. We can see, we can book a flight, we can just book a hotels, right? We can book some holiday package, some train, buses, everything we can do basically from this site. Suppose, I'm just looking for some area. Let's say I just want to book some flight. So if I go for, let's say from Pune, I just want to search this flight from the Pune, let's say to New Delhi. Fine. And see, obviously I will select some date and I will select some, the particular, the area, let's say the August, let me take, I just want for 1st August. Fine. And if I go to search, yes, what you are getting, see, you are getting multiple, flights available for 1st August. Now you can just observe. This is what? This is a response. Basically, मैंने क्या किया? मैंने एक request को pass किया कि I just want to book a flight from Pune to New Delhi, right? And I'm getting these kind of responses now. So you just observe. I'm getting some response from Air Asia, Go First. I'm getting response from Air India. You can see there are multiple responses are coming. Vistara, right? There are so many. So now tell me, for Air India, for Air Asia, right? We have a separate web applications, right? They have their own site. Then even though people can access entire data, whatever they simple show, whatever they simple, like user can observe from their site, original site, everything you are able to see through the make my trip also. So how it is possible? Let's see. Let me give you this scenario. Suppose Air India. Okay. Let's say here what we have, here we have Go First. Okay. And this is a make my trip. So make my trip is here, third party application, correct? So Air India is available. Go First is available. They have their own database. Observe. They have their own database. And make my trip also have their own database. Correct. All the flights, whatever for every particular location, whatever it is available, it is where it is available in their database. So through the make my trip, whenever we are passing request, okay, what is exactly happening? Request goes to where? Whatever user will do at this front end side. For me, make my trip is my front end side. Through this front end side, I can book a particular flight. So I can pass a request. Request goes to where? Request goes to this particular Air India. So is that mean that make my trip is directly passing request to the Air India database, and through the database make my trip is getting the response? Is it mean that make my trip is passing request to the Go First, and through the Go First make my trip is getting the response, and then the same response user is able to observe? No, guys. There, like database is a very crucial part, right? No applications are sharing their database to any other application. So here, this is one application and this is another application. So how they are able to communicate? For security purpose, what they did? For Air India, whatever the database is there, okay, they have implemented this database in the form of API. Okay, whatever the internal structure will be there, it is implemented in the form of API. So how the communication is happen? See, databases keep securing here right now. Make my trip this time can pass a request to the API, and whatever it is coming from the real database, make my trip is able to access it through the API. So what is API? API is an application programming interface where two different applications, they are able to communicate, they are able to share their data. Are you getting my point? So here, nobody are going to share their original information directly. You will get it everything, the main data, everything through the API only. So API is important here for communication. Remember this point. So this time, let's say why they have provided this API. Let's say tomorrow, suppose, this is a real database, and from the real database, suppose Air India has cancelled the flight. Consider, isne cancel kiya hai, right? Still, if the make my trip is showing the detail for that flight, then it is not valid, no? If user is able to, let's say user ne agar koi flight ko book kiya, right? In that case, what will happen? Request mila, response mila, and flight book to hua, but yes, it is cancelled by the original application. So there should be relation between two applications. Whenever they are passing, they are sharing, they are communicating their data. And this relation we are able to maintain only with the help of API. So everybody, the point is clear. What is API and where it comes into the picture? Yes. So go first, same thing. Whatever access point is available, they have implemented in the form of API. And this API, you guys can use it. You can pass a request and you can access the data. So Make My Trip is a third-party application. Okay, it is just showing you everything which is available, by this application in the form of API. Same thing, if you observe another example. See, if you observe another example. So whenever you just want to log in somewhere, maybe on Facebook, suppose if you try to log in on Twitter, what will happen? It will ask you, once you try to log in, it will ask you, just be on mute. Okay. It will ask you, okay, do you want to log in with your Google account? So do you want to log in with your Google account? This kind of pop-up you will get. So obviously Facebook is different application. Google is different application. Its database different, Facebook database different, Twitter database different. So how exactly we are able to communicate directly? Is that mean Facebook is able to communicate directly with Google? No, there is no such a relation. Basically what is happening? Every, Google API is available and it accessed by this another application. Maybe Twitter ne access kiya hai, maybe this Facebook ne access kiya hai, same thing. To log in into third party application, maybe you are getting message that you want to log in with your Facebook account, Google account. So why you are getting such a kind of options? Because all these applications, they have shared their API, and through this API only we are able to communicate. So API is a central point. I can say API is an interface where two different applications are able to communicate. Correct now? They are able to share their data. They are able to exchange their information. And this is what API. Now guys, in Selenium, let me give you one more example. So in Selenium, we have to write a code inside a Eclipse. Correct? So how you guys are going to write a Selenium script? क्या आप directly लिख सकते हो Selenium script? No. What you require? You just need to add that Selenium jar file, or this client library into Eclipse. And then only you are able to write a script, and then same script will pass a request to the browser. And then through the browser, you are able to see the response. This is what the process, no? So what a jar is acting here? Jar is acting here, it's like a API. So that is a reason Selenium WebDriver is also called API, through which, Eclipse, the plain Java code, we are able to write and we are able to communicate with the browser. So here WebDriver is also API, where you can communicate with two different applications, two different software. Everybody clear? What is API? So let's see. API enables communication, data exchange between two separate systems. Software system implementing API that contain functions, subrouting, entire programming, like that can be executed or accessed by any another software system. So API can be written and used for what? Obviously to communicate between web applications, to communicate between computer operating system. Obviously, in operating system also, see, OS is acting like a API only. Through the OS only we are able to communicate, we are able to pass instruction to our system, and then system will respond to you, right? Same in database system, computer hardware, right? Whatever you are connecting. Suppose tomorrow, what is happening? I have something in a pen drive, okay? And I just want to access that data. What you guys are going to do? You are going to connect that pen drive to your system. So what is happening? Again, through the computer hardware, we are able to communicate. Are you understanding? So this is a communication point where two different components, they are able to communicate. Very, very simple. So you can use it in software library like a jar file. Just now I have shown you library is nothing but the jar file, any kind of executable file you can consider. And that is the point, where the API comes into the picture. So API is what? It is a simple application programming interface through which two different applications, two different parties, they are able to communicate. Now guys, what is API testing? Let me tell you. So API testing is a testing APIs and its integration with web services. So now what is web service? Let me explain. Web service API, there is no such a difference, but let me explain what is exactly happening. So as I told you, developer develop this API, right? And developer provide this API into the QA environment. So once in QA environment, we test it. This is what actually we are doing, API testing. So here we are doing what? API testing. After QA environment, what will happen once the entire API testing is completed, request and response, everything is completed and successfully working, then only we simple pass this API to the production environment. In the production environment, what happened? Here we are able to deploy the application, correct now? Here the main process is deployment. So whenever any API, okay, whenever any API, it get deployed, okay, on a web server, on a web or through the internet, right? Then this API you can use in the form of web service. So basically, web services are what? See, Google, other like applications, everybody, they have provided their web services, and these web services you will be able to see. And whenever we test these web services, this is called web service testing, correct? So I can say every web service, it is nothing but API, correct now? Every web service is nothing but API. But see, every API को आप host नहीं करोगे. Remember the point. So it depends on your requirement ki whether we need to host this API on the web or directly we are going to release it, you know, in the like making some application, UI part, everything, and then we can release that application to the client. So whenever any API hosted by the web, then that is called web service. Okay, very, very simple. So in API testing, what is our main focus? Main focus will be on the business logic layer of the software architecture. Okay, this is the main focus. We test what? Entire collection of program. So whatever business logic will be there, that we will test, correct? Now, API testing can be performed on any software system which contain multiple APIs. Obviously, on any software system, whatever the APIs you will have, right, we are able to test that. And in fact, there is a one more point. Every time to do API testing, you don't require any internet, guys. So with the internet or without internet also, we do API testing. Okay. API testing, it is a software testing practice that tests API directly, you know, from their functionality, reliability, performance to security, right? We can test every single point here. Let me tell you, it is a part of integration testing. So after integration, whenever you are getting built that executable file, at that point, we do API testing. So API testing effectively validate what? The logic of the build architecture within a short amount of time. Why it is very, very faster? Because there is no UI integration, guys. You are not able to see any UI. आपको बस request देना है and response को test करना है. So API testing, it is a way or only way to provide truly secure, reliable and scalable connections between platforms. So in order to test API, what you will need, let me tell you, you just need to understand how we can test it. Of course, manually also we can perform this API testing. So for manually, if you want to go for API testing, then we have a very beautiful tool that we can do. See, I can perform API testing, like I can show you, like we can perform API testing through the browser also. So what we do on browser, and then we have some tools also through which, you know, we are able to perform this API testing. So I'm going to show you here a Postman tool, how exactly you are able to use it and how exactly you are able to perform API testing. And yes, you can write your script also to test API, and that part I will be showing you tomorrow, correct? How you guys are going to prepare a script through the Selenium script and how exactly we are able to pass that request to that particular API and how we can test the response. So this part, that means in manually plus automation, in both way, we guys can test the API. This is the main point that you need to remember. Now guys, so where the API testing perform? Yes, what we have discussed at this business layer, you know, API testing perform. So at presentation layer, we do functional testing part, UI testing part, right? But at this middle layer, application or business layer, we do API testing. So API testing is performed at the most critical layer, that is business, you know, in which business logic processing is carried out. And all transaction between the user interface and database layer happens. Obviously, it is a middle layer. Whatever request you guys are passing, request will goes to the database, and same, you know, response, you will get it to this front end side. So API testing we do at this middle layer, which is called business layer. And what we test? So we test business logic. So this is again a very important interview question. What are the different types of API testing? So yes, guys, we can do functionality. Yes, to check if the API works or does exactly what it is supposed to do. Correct? That is what functionality testing we can do. Reliability testing. Yes, to check if API can be consistently connected to and lead the consistent result. So whatever request you are passing, you are getting same result or not, that we can validate. Obviously, validation also we can perform. So it will help you to verify aspect of the product behavior efficiency of the API. Then we can perform load testing also. What is load testing? See, obviously load testing means what? Whenever we perform client expected load, whenever we provide client expected load onto the software, and if we test the performance, then that is called load testing. So in API also, it performed to ensure that what? Performance of API under both normal and peak condition. Correct? UI testing also. Yeah, it involves testing the user interface for API and other integral part. So not exactly UI, like whatever we do at a functional site, but I can show you like what kind of UI we can validate. Okay, it is not exactly a correct or complete UI, but yes, we can do some internal or integral part of that UI. We can test. I can show you through the Postman, right? Security testing to test the API, which whether it is secure or it is against, all the possible external threat. Yes, we do security testing again. There is a one more penetration testing. Security testing is also referred as penetration testing, but it is a special process, where you will get to know that what kind of attacks will be there and how exactly we are able to, simple handle, or we are able to check that all the vulnerabilities were, from the attacker perspective. Same thing. See, to detect vulnerabilities of the application from the attacker perspective. This is called pen testing, penetration testing, you can call. There is a one more very interesting first testing. You know what is meant by first testing? Guys, if you check on Google, there are so many, options, testing types are available. So you will get some new types now from this particular topic, right? What is first testing? See, it is used to test the API in the terms of limit to prepare for the worst case scenario. It's like some negative scenario. Through the first testing, we are able to test some negative scenario, some worst case scenario. We can try and we can test the application. The same thing in API testing also, we can perform these many testing types. So this is called types of API testing. After this session, I will be sharing you some interview questions also. So just prepare those interview questions for your, interview. You will get the help from that. And let's see, there is a one more special interview question, like what is the difference then between unit testing and API testing? Because unit testing, entire unit will be developed by developer and test by developer. So what is the difference in API? Because API is also developed by developer, correct na? So दोनों में क्या difference है? Let's see. This is again very important topic. First point, unit testing performed by developer, but API testing performed by tester. In unit testing, we test what? Separate functionality. Yes, smallest part of the application we test in isolation. Correct? Separately, independent testing हम करेंगे. But in API testing, what we do? We test the end-to-end functionality. Why? Because just focus. Whenever you talk about, like we have 3 layers, right? And we are able to pass a request and we will see the response. And here, instead of the presentation layer, what we are doing, we are passing a request on this business logic directly. And business logic will pass a request to this database. And through the database only, you will able to see the response. So it is actually happening what? End-to-end testing only. Here is the front end side where you are able to pass a request. And same thing you will able to see at this particular level, right? So here also API testing we do for what? For end-to-end functionality testing. So developer can access source code. Obviously, unit testing, unit is implemented by developer, so he can access source code, program, right? But in API testing, tester cannot access any source code. Okay, you guys are not going to access it. Because we are just going to perform black box testing, pass a request and check the response. UI testing is involved, but here only API functions are tested. We don't have any UI side or UI part for testing purpose. Okay. So I will say like unit testing is a limited in scope, but API testing is what? Broader in scope. We can do almost all the other types also we can follow here. Correct? Manually plus automation way से भी आप इसको test कर सकते हो. So it is again I have a broader scope. Unit testing usually run before checking. That means whenever one module is ready, at that time, developer will test that module and then they will simple pass it for the second layer. That is called integration testing. But when the API testing we do, it run after build is created. As I told you, pehle unit testing hoga, integration hoga, then finally you will get a build. And on that build, very first we do API testing. So if the build is working fine, directly if we test at the backend side, so you will not require to take much effort, at the front end side. Remember this point. And that is the reason whenever build is created, we do API testing. So now the point is, what is web service? But yes, as I told you, web service is what? Whenever API is available or hosted on a web, then that is called web service. Web service is actually API only, but which is wrapped in a HTTP. I will say it is wrapped in a particular, process. HTTP is what? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay. So same web service will help you to enable the communication between application over the web. Yes. And that is the reason through the Make My Trip, through the Google, we are able to communicate with other applications. So it provides a standard protocol for communication using web services. Two different applications can talk with each other. They can exchange their data, information through the web service. So let's see very common and very beautiful example. Let's say, suppose when you go to any kind of, hotel, obviously what you will do, you will order some food, right? So like, are you going to pass your request directly to that particular, I can say the chef? No. What we do, we generally communicate with the waiter, right? So we order a food to this waiter. Waiter will simple pass your request to that kitchen, obviously, and then chef will make that food for you. And after that, you will get it on your table. So what is happening here? The customer is nothing but the client. Waiter is acting here like a communication is possible through the client and that chef, or customer and the chef, with the help of waiter. So that is the reason waiter I can call API response, right? Or API. Through this API, we are able to pass a request and we will get the response. This is the entire functionality. So this is called web service API. So whenever any API, all the web services are nothing but API only. But every API is not considered as a web service, right? So API is what, or web service is what? It is simple, like with a standard protocol. It is a concept like here we add some protocol. Protocol are nothing but some guidelines, some rule that we can follow to communicate within two different parties. Simple. So it provides a standard protocol for communication, and using web service, this communication is possible. So same API, whenever it is hosted on a server, that is called web service. Everybody, I hope the points are clear. Correct? अब एक और important interview question आता है, क्योंकि fine, अगर web service से communication होता है, and web service is actually API which is wrapped together into HTTP. That is what protocol, HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So through this protocol, we are able to communicate. Okay, that is fine. But now, how many different web services are there? Let me tell you guys, there are two different web services are available, very, very popular. First, it is called SOAP. SOAP means Simple Object Access Protocol. Okay. And there is a one more, which is called REST, which is very popular. Representational State Transfer, but this is not a protocol. It is a architectural style. Remember, SOAP we can consider as a protocol, but this is not a protocol. It is just an architectural style where you can communicate, through this protocol or through this particular service, we are able to communicate with the help of two different applications or with two different applications. So these services are actually available on the web, and then it is called web service. And there are two different web services are available, SOAP web service and REST web service, right? So what is this medium? What is this format? Basically, how exactly they are able to communicate. Whenever we are saying, okay, fine, two different applications are communicate. But yes, how? So let me tell you, this is a client, which is we can consider service consumer, right? And this is a server, which is nothing but service provider. So through the client, we are able to pass a request. Through the server, we will get that response. So this communication for this medium used in SOAP, that is only HTTP post request. Guys, these are 4 requests available, get, post, put, delete. एटलीस्ट 4 रिक्वेस्ट को अभी के लिए अंडरस्टैंड करो. So the medium used in SOAP protocol, it is HTTP post, and format it used generally XML format. You know, XML, this is again an extensible markup language. You know, JSON, JavaScript object notation. These are the formats. You know, it can be any format basically. But when you talk about a SOAP, there is a standard rule. SOAP has to follow, SOAP is a protocol. It has to follow some standard rule, which is defined by W3C, obviously. World Wide Web Consortium. And that is the reason, you know, it has a medium that is a HTTP post and it has a format that is XML. So whenever two parties are communicating, the communication is happen only with this one single language that is called XML, right? But what is happening in REST? REST is a representation state transfer, and this is not a protocol, it is an architectural style. So here for a medium, not only post, but we can do some other operation. We can get some information from the server, we can create some information to the server, or we can pass some information to the server. In fact, we can update our data, and in fact, we can delete our data. Everything we can perform, whatever basic operations we do on database, those operations we can perform through the REST. And that is the reason REST is a very, very popular, right? What kind of format? It can be any, guys. It support almost all the format. It can be HTTP request. It can be, you know, the XML format, HTML format, JSON format, text format. You will get any format, you know, and that is the reason this web service is very popular. So remember only 2 points, SOAP and REST. These two are web services. Okay, these are two types of web services which are available over a web. But nowadays the popularity has the REST. So what is REST? REST stands for representational state transfer. This is an architectural style, right? A service represents resource that can be accessed from the web. So how exactly we are able to communicate? We can pass some request. But वो request में क्या होता है? Generally, request is nothing but collection of your domain, or it is the information about your domain, entire resource. So where exactly you are getting this information? And then it is a combination of your URI also. Some resource, URI, these terms are very important. So what are these? We will discuss. Okay. So commonly it makes the use of different HTTP requests, as I told you, and this request, you know, these methods actually implement what? CRUD functionality. This means what? C stand for what? We are able to create a new resource. R stand for what? It is like, I can say read the resource or, you know, retrieve the resource. So it is a get request. Put is used for what? Update. And delete is used to delete the resource. Correct? So anything like any functionality, any module, that is that module or that functionality we can consider here as a resource. So anything if you want to change, anything if you want to create, that every operation, whatever we do on that resource, it is possible through this RESTful web service. Okay, that is the reason it is popular. So I have added few points here, like this request and what is the meaning of this request. You guys need to understand. Okay, what is a get, what is post, put, delete, and patch. So guys, get is used to what? This is a method used for fetching detail from the server, and it is a read-only operation. Correct? Post is what? It is a method used to create new resource on a server. What is put? Put, it is a method. It is used to update old or existing resource on the server. And what the delete will do? Delete is a method which will use to delete resource on the server. Similarly, we have one more, patch. What is this patch? Patch will also help you to modify. So basically, put and patch, both are in functionality, both are same. But in put, there is a one difference, you know, it will replace the original resource with a new value. But in patch, what will happen? It will help you to, you know, perform some partial update or partial modification. That is the main difference between put and patch, because both will do update. Clear? Now, this is a one more important question. People might ask you what kind of status code are available, guys. So just remember these 4 families. 200, 2xx, that means whatever comes in 200 family, that is what the success code. Okay, that all code or that HTTP status will be considered as a success code. Then whatever you will get in 300 family, that is called redirection. So see 301 and 302 and 4, this is what the meaning I have already given here. 400 family, it is like a client error. Mostly you are aware about this, right? 404 not found, page not found, right? Sometimes you will get, unauthorized error, forbidden error, right? Method not allow error. So just remember. And the 500, server, this is kind of server error. Anything related to server issues like bad gateway, not implemented, service unavailable, server down, whatever it is, you will get it through this 500 family. So these status code you guys need to remember. Okay, in the interview, people might ask you. Now, this is the main part. How exactly we will pass a request and how we will get the response. So please understand the flow. Workflow for HTTP method. See, through the client, we will pass a request. So in the request, what the parameters will be? Maybe you are passing URI. What is URI and what is URL? URL is a uniform resource locator. And URI means what? Uniform resource identifier. Okay, what is URI? We will talk on that. Headers. Some internal, information is important. Whenever client is passing request, the client information is important to pass to the server, and that is in the form of header you will get. Some payload, that means entire request internally it is implementing in a language, programming only. So you are passing your payload, payload to the server. And from the server, obviously server can validate that request, and through the database only you are able to get that response. But what kind of response? See, either we can check code, some payload, or some messages. This kind of response you will get it. So guys, few more points I have added. Okay, you don't need to search anywhere, directly PPT ko follow karo. So what is URL? URL is uniform resource locator. That denotes what? Specific location on a computer network, and also technique for retrieving it. Correct? URL is a unique resource which can be in the CSS document or HTML web page. So endpoint request, that means URL can be in this form. You have some base URL, then some resource. It includes maybe query or path parameter. So let me give you one beautiful example. See, if you go to the browser and just on Google search one site, REQRES. Okay, this is very, very special and very, very important. Let me show you. Yeah, I have written REQ. Let me write REQRES. Request response. Okay, see this. So you can use this application, you can use this site where you will get some, fake or dummy APIs for testing purpose. So you can use this. Okay, and see, this is the complete list. So get, post, put, patch, delete, these are some requests are available here. And they have, it is everything, dummy only. You can use it. You can perform practical on this. So what is happening? If I just observe here, this is my base URL. Just observe. ये हमने जो copy किया है अभी. This is our what? This is our base URL. Let me open a notepad and let me show you. So this is my base URL. Okay, just focus. So this we can consider as a base URL. And if I want to pass any request, तो देखो request यहाँ पे लिखा है. This example, if I want to go to this get request and see it is a request available. But whatever you can see here, okay, in this request, what is this? Basically, this is called endpoint. Okay, whatever you are able to see here, this is called endpoint. So if you click, you will be able to see this particular response. Just observe what I'm getting. This is my endpoint. Let me show you. So once you add it here, it will be considered as an endpoint. तो ये रहेगा आपका base URL, right? And this is your endpoint, means actual request. In this request, this part we can consider as a resource, API/user. This is we can consider as a resource. And what is this? There is one question mark, and question mark is equal to something. So whenever you can see, guys, any question mark, this question mark is actually a part of query parameter. It is actually a part of query parameter. So whatever question mark we can observe, this is nothing but what? It is a query parameter. Okay, remember this point. So here, what we are passing a request. But देखो request कैसे generate हुआ and कैसे answer आपको आ रहा है? You are getting something in the form of this kind of information. This is called a JSON response. Everybody, this form is what? Whatever you are able to see here, this is a JSON response. Let me show you one more time. See. You are able to see in this way, right? Page is 2. Just observe. Let me admit few students. See, page is equal to 2, right? Per page, how many records are there? 6 records are there. So total 12 records are available. Correct? So this is a Total 6 records you are able to observe for page number 2. If I pass this request in this form, suppose page is equal to 1, what will happen? See, yes, perfectly fine. See, we are able to observe this request in the form of page 1, response in the form of for page 1. Again, 6 records are available, total 12 records are there. And total pages, how many? 2 pages are there. So in this way, what we are able to do, we are able to pass a request on a browser itself, and we will get the response to the browser itself. But now, here we will get only in the form, like a JSON form or maybe in the text form. Or like, how exactly you will get to know, like what is the status code for this? Maybe some other detail, if you want to check that whether your request is pass or not, right? In that case, browser will not help you guys for this kind of testing. So browser से बस आप request को pass कर सकते हो and you are able to see the response. But if you want to observe exact output in a correct form, then what you are going to do? You are going to use a tool. So before tool, let me complete this part. So any URL, it is a combination of everything. There can be resource, there can be query path parameter, and see, this is the complete URL address then we can use. Correct? Now, what is URL? Very important topic. Uniform source identifier. Okay, URI is actually uniform source identifier. It is referring to the responses or resources on the internet. Is a string identifier and it follows some syntax, some rule, confirming the uniformity. So basically, whether you are getting the correct response or not, right? So URI is simple. We are passing in the form of the information like resource detail, simple. So it is an identity. It consists what? Or we can simple consider like URI is what? It is like a identifier which map to your file on a server. Simple. So for communication, this part is important. And it consists of string character, right? Used to identify resource on the internet, see, with the help of name or maybe slash or maybe any location. So whatever you are able to observe here, slash API user, question mark page 2. See, this is a parameter, somewhere it is called, this kind of parameter are called path. And whenever you can see the question mark, it is called query parameter. So path parameter are variable, part of URL only or URL path only. So they are typically used to point to specific resource, correct? So from where you are getting this information, right? That resource we can simple capture here. So whenever you are passing any request, you can pass resource also, and then you will able to see that response. So within a collection, such as any user identify or user identify by ID, correct? So query parameter means what? It is like some information or some request or some query that we are able to pass, and we will simple. We are just expecting, that kind of response we should get from the server. So query parameter is used to sort and filter the resource. Same. And query parameters are identified with what? Question mark. Remember this point. So now there is one more header, some header cookies. That is also important. Some payload is also important. So what is header? Using request header, client can able to send some additional information to the server about their request, right? So as well as their itself, information about the client itself. So additionally, they can be either, 0 or more headers in the request, which can define some content type, authorization specification, some cookies information. Internally, it is available in the header. So where you can see that, where you can get that, let me show you through the practical. Payload. What is payload? So APIs, the payload is data content within the request. So as I told you, whatever data you are passing, that is called payload. So payload within a request, usually, it is designed with some curly braces, and the request usually sent as a JSON file. And that is a reason, JSON is a universal protocol actually. JavaScript object notation, it is a universal protocol. It is a lightweight. In fact, it is a platform independent, and that is a reason between two different client and server, we are able to easily communicate with a JSON, and that is the reason it is very, very popular. So it is as an alternative to the XML also, right? It can be any file, XML file, data file, or JSON file, we are able to pass in the form of payload. So guys, what is a resource? Resource represent any API collection which can be accessed from the server. Correct? Whatever information you want, that you are able to access from the server using this resource. What is endpoint? As I told you, address where the API is hosted on a server, that is the API. तो यहाँ पे इस रिक्वेस्ट में अगर आपने ऑब्जर्व किया है, दिस इज ए एपीआई, करेक्ट? दिस इज base URL and along with this complete data, it is called what? It is a API. So remember this point. Now, if you want to do this, right? So as I told you, this is the official website. एक website है, यहाँ पे आपको demo APIs, for demo purpose, they have provided some APIs. You guys are able to use it and you guys are able to perform it, or you can use it for your practice purpose. So let me show you how you can do this through the Postman. Okay, not complete Postman practical. Today we will see only the overview. I will show you only one request and tomorrow we will continue with the rest of the request. So please remember this point, what we need to do for the Postman. Guys, first of all, there are so many tools available, okay, not only Postman, but there are some other tools are also available through which you guys are able to do API testing. But Postman is very popular. There is SOAP API, SOAP UI, REST, so many things are there, but I will show you on Postman as well as I will be showing on REST also. So what is a Postman? Let's see. So it is a tool. Postman, it is a collaboration platform for API development. Obviously, Postman tool is not only used for testing purpose, but if you want to implement any API, so API development, document, report development, testing purpose, for everything, we use this tool. So you can use Postman to design, build, test API conjunction with your teammates and to support developer adoption. Very good, right? Using Postman tool, we can send what? HTTP request to the service or to the server, as well as we will get their response also. By doing this, we can make sure that service is up and running. So main purpose is what? Every API is working, that only we are going to test. Correct? How to do that? So there are various features for Postman also. We will see tomorrow, but let me show you how exactly we can integrate or how exactly we can use this Postman. So guys, there are two ways. Actually, Postman को use करना है तो आप download करके भी use कर सकते हो और directly you can use a web application also. So I recommend that you can follow web application. So that will be easy. Just type on Google Postman, okay? And see, you will be able to see this official website, www.postman.com. Go to this. Here you can see, they have mentioned some information about the Postman, and you can see if you want to sign up, yeah, it is free. You can sign up for free. If you want to download, then you can just use this particular, options and you are able to download, right? Postman, and see some other components also, whatever the services they are providing, everything they have added on this website. So guys, there is also good documentation available. You can follow the same. See, now let me show you. First, we are going to do what? We are going to perform sign up. And now you can see why I'm getting this option here. Sign up with Google. Now tell me, what is the reason behind that? Because here the Google API is used for communication. So Postman is different application. Google is different, but still through the Google, we are able to log in Postman. No? Yes, it is possible because we are getting here Google API. So now what you need to do is a very simple process. You just need to add an email ID, some username and password. Let me do it. Suppose I'm adding my other email ID. So let's see, base tst215@gmail.com. Okay. I'm just providing some name. Let's say Priyanka, and let me provide my name. And then I'm going to set some password. Okay. You guys need to do same thing. Okay. Let me write one more time. Done. And you can just click on this option. Okay. Just use create Postman account. So it will take some time, and yes, it is asking now. Okay, fine. It is asking for a name. Let me just write a name and you can select your role. So let me choose my role here. Yeah, I'm working as a quality engineer, and let me continue. Done. Okay, so if you want, yeah, if you want your team, no, then you can add your email IDs here and you can make that team, right? So currently I'm not going to make any team. So I will continue without a team. So just use this option, continue without team. Done. It is free, guys. So you don't require to do anything. It is free. And see, you are in I can say in the Postman. So initially you will able to see that, okay, fine. What you need to do, you want to go for new request, right? So if you know, you can just select this. Otherwise, just click, see all the features they have provided, like where to start up and all. So let's see, let me click on this. I know the Postman. Now, if you observe, this is the entire view. Okay. Now see, this is your workspace. I'm getting here first my workspace, right? And now here you can observe. This is a entire toolbar, okay, where you can see some options are available, home, workspace. Here you can create your workspace. Some API network you will be able to see here, right? Some other feature like search is available here. And here you can see some settings are available, right? And this is your profile detail. If you want to update your profile, you can, right? So these many options are there. Plus now this is a collection. Okay, collections. What is exactly meaning of collection? Then I will say that collections, like, it is a group, group where you can keep your all requests. Group of requests where we can keep, that is called collection. It's like a folder only, जहाँ पे आप अपने जितने भी request आप prepare करोगे, right? You are able to save it. So if you observe in this, we are able to see some request, collection, API, environment. Same thing you are able to see at the left-hand side panel. Okay. What is the first role that we guys need to create our workspace? So let me go to workspace. I'll create here. I will use this option, create a workspace. You just need to give a name. Example, I'm giving TST215. Okay. And this time I will be just adding, okay, this is DST215 workspace for API testing. Done. And you can make it public and you can click on create. So you can see, again, you are able to see your workspace, right? So this workspace is now publicly available. So once the workspace is ready, now we will create a folder where we can keep all the requests, correct now? So I will go to this option, collection, and see in collection at the side only, you will be able to see some plus sign, and that is what here you can create a new collection. Just click on that. So it will ask you, what is your new collection? Here you can provide a name. So let me just write here, base TST215. This is my new collection. Done. And yes, what we can do then? So in the collection, you can see, you will be able to see some information, some test, variables. So this is very interesting. Test. For testing purpose, they have given some ready-made snippet to you. See guys, ये सब ready-made snippets है जो आप use कर सकते हो for testing purpose. So I will show you like how exactly we can apply this test. Other parameters we are not going to study, but still you will at least get to know what is Postman and what is API testing, how we can do it. So you can just observe my collection is ready. See, currently it is empty. So I just need to add a request. How you can add a request? Guys, यहाँ पे एक option आ रहा है, add a request, you can see. Otherwise, what you can do, just go to here and you can just add this particular request from here. See, initially I'm getting what? One get request. See, these many parameters are there. If you click on get, see, these many requests are available. Get, post, put, patch, delete, copy, head, multiple requests are there. But these 5 are very popular. Get, post, put, patch, delete. You should know as a tester, what are these requests. If you observe here, here we pass our endpoint. So whatever URL will be there for testing purpose, that we are going to pass it here. Then you can see there is some param. Param means here we can add some parameters. Authorization is available. See some headers, whatever the headers will be there, you will be able to see here. Some hidden headers are there. The host, user agent, accept, connection. This kind of headers are available. Body. Here you can simple pass a payload. If you want to pass any data to the request, you can add it or you can pass it here in the body. Then some prerequisite script. If you want to set up some prerequisite for your test case, you can add it here. Whatever test you want to prepare, you can prepare here. And some setting options is also available. Correct? Some SSL certification setup, HTTP method setup, you can just observe here. So what we need to do? Very first, I will be passing my request. Let me show you very simple example first. Okay, let's say I will pass this Google request. Okay, and where here I can show you the UI part also, like what kind of UI you will get. So once you want to pass a request, just open Postman, and here we can add your endpoint. That means this is my request. Yeah, google.com. Just observe. And then what I'm going to do, I will just click on this option, send option. Okay. Here you can see, you will be able to see this send option. Just click on this button. Now what is happening? See, you guys are able to see some response. देखो आपका response. Now let me show you this part. See, whatever request I have passed, I am able to see some HTML response. दिख रहा है? ये क्या है? This is a HTML response. See, entire thing you can observe here. This is a HTML response. If you want to observe this HTML response in the form of JSON, just select here, okay, which format you want. So this is a JSON. Suppose if you want some text format, you can just add it, you will be able to see in the text format, right? And by default, it will show you HTML. So you can see it is a HTML for Google page. If you go to raw, okay, you'll be able to see in the text format. If you go to preview, see here, you can see the UI. Everybody, can you see this UI? So I'm not getting a complete UI, but still I can observe, na, there is some logo, there is some image, or there is some button, link, you know, in this way. Only this type of UI you can observe. This is a preview basically. So application का जो request आपने pass किया है, you will be able to see in the form of response. What we generally follow, we follow this one, correct? Now here, the main point, just observe. Here you can see some network information, you will get it. Then you can just see what is this status. Status is equal to 200. See, read the documentation. It is a standard response for successful HTTP request. The actual response will be depend on the request or method that we use, right? But in GET request, response will contain entity corresponding the requested resource, and post response will contain some entity describing or containing the result of action. So 200, okay, it is 200, it is a code, and okay, it is a successful message. Remember, so code and message दोनों को आप टेस्ट कर सकते हो. Yes, and then you can see some timing you are getting, some size you are getting, that how much like whatever request you are passing or whatever response you are getting, what is the size of that? Body का size कितना है, header का size कितना है, right? Everything you will able to see here. If you want to save, you are able to save it. Okay, there is an option. Now, this is my get first request. Let me save it. Suppose you can just go to this option, save, and just you can say what kind of request it is. It is a Google request. So I will just write here, it is a Google request. Let me save. Done. And I will just add like in which collection I'm going to or save it. Yes, it is in the base DST 215. So just select it and save it. See, Google request has been saved. Now let me come to this one. What is key and value? You know, on Google, if you want to search something, so what we do, this example, if I go to the original page and if I just search here Java, okay, and if I click enter, see what is happening. If you observe in the URL, see, I can show you here, okay, in the query, just observe. Let me copy this part, or let me copy from this part, complete URL, see this, okay. Copy, and if I go to the notepad again, just observe here. When I pass that I want to search for Java, you can just see what is happening. Search is a resource. What I want to do, I want to search. So this is my resource, but see what is coming here. Q is equal to something. So question mark Q, that means this is a query parameter. Q is a key and Java is a value. Everybody clear? And in this way we get the answer now. See, I have clicked enter key also. So I'm getting some other resources also, you can see, and some source and some other detail. So the point is clear. So here in the Postman also, if you want to pass such a kind of request, what you are going to do? So this is your code, this is your actual request we are passing. Suppose I want to pass same request, then I can write here Q. This is my key. You can see it is automatically appended in the same URL. Can you see this question mark Q? And see which value I am going to pass. I'm just looking for Java, right? In this case, what will happen? If you send same request, see the response now. Just go to preview and check the response. Can you see search box mein Java print hua? Everybody clear? So obviously our main focus is not UI testing. Our main focus is test this entire response. So that can be HTML, JSON, that can be status code, messages, right? These kind of things we can observe. Everybody clear? So this is again a query request. Let me save it. So I will just click on save. Okay. Just a minute. So basically what you are going to do, you are going to use this particular, Postman for API testing. So let me just write here a query request. Okay. And again, in the same collection, I will save it. So you can see my two requests, get request only I have saved today. So guys, is this clear? How we can apply Postman, how we can use in fact Postman? It is very simple. You just need to do login and you can just pass your request. Only the point is, first basic point you should know. What is API, why we require API, and how exactly we can perform API testing. Correct? So in this way, for today, just do one thing, follow the recording, follow the PPT, and then you can just log in into the Postman and at least create this kind of get request. Tomorrow, I will show you how we can use get, post, and other requests using the Postman. As well as I will be covering one more topic, that is a REST API. That topic I will cover tomorrow at the same time. Okay. So I hope you guys are clear with the concept. You guys are clear with the topic. So that's all for the day. Thank you, everyone.